In this video we are looking at creating a study using oil pastels. Oil pastels are quite different to use than other media you will have experienced, such as pencils or paint. They have a much thicker base to actually work with, so it makes them much harder to get fine details. However, they blend really easily, which is a fantastic benefit of them. For that reason, the study we are doing will not have any small fine details in it. I am looking at some fish scales. When you're drawing it, make sure you aren't doing anything with too small scales. We need to have them very large on the page to allow you to get in the colours into the shapes of the scales. Now I'm focusing on an image using cold colours. The next video I show you will use chalk pastels, and we'll look at use of warm colours. For your study, I would like you to choose one or the other with the oil pastels. Now you can see the first thing I've done is I've sketched it out. Well, I've laid my page out nice and neatly, but then I have sketched out the scales using a pencil. It is important that you do this bit accurately. Look really closely at how the scales overlap and the angles they make with the page. Otherwise your drawing isn't going to work. You'll spend a long time adding colour, but if you haven't drawn it correctly, it isn't going to work. After I've drawn it out, I've chosen my colours from my box. Now this is obviously, as I said before, it's cold colours, but within that I've got a really dark navy between the scales. I've got a more kind of royal blue coming in the darker areas, and then a kind of teal or a turquoise coming through in the lighter areas. So those are the main colours that I'm going to look at using. Now I've started with the top left corner. I am right-handed. This means that as I'm working, my hand isn't leaning on top of the oil pastels because they are very smudgy. I've begun by adding in kind of the outline to the scale, and then I've worked inside with my colours. It is really important that you look closely at your image, at where the darker areas are and the lighter areas are. As you work with the oil pastels, just by overlapping them, you will see they blend beautifully together. Now these scales have quite a bit of texture, so you can kind of stipple with the oil pastel to add a rougher texture just by pressing it down almost in a dotting motion. Now in the video it doesn't come out as bright as the picture itself was. However, it is important that you're seeing really clearly that those much brighter areas and the much darker areas, looking closely at each individual scale. So again, this is where it's important that you draw it correctly, because if you haven't, it'll be very hard to know which scale you're drawing. So just continue working down the page. This is a fish kind of on its side, and you can see towards the bottom left, that's actually the fin on the top of the fish's back, which I'm going to complete in last. It's slightly easier, a little bit less going on in it. Have a look over your work once you're finished. Check that you're happy with the colours you've used. You can work back over oil pastels, but now it's time for you to give it a go.